Hey FlossTube, I'm here to do my August WIP update, and if there's time, I will do the Fun Little Tag by Carolina. Hopefully this won't go too long. First, the last time you saw me, I was coming to you from my hotel room in New York, and that was on a Thursday. The next day I went to see my brother, and I stayed with him until Tuesday. I came back to California the following Tuesday, and I had a ball. A little background. My brother and I actually just met about 2 years ago. We didn't grow up together. My dad was married before he married my mom. There's a big age difference between my parents, so 20 years. So when my mom was a little girl, my dad was getting married, and he had 2 sons by that marriage. But by the time I came along, he was not in contact with those sons, and they were out of high school. They were grown by the time I was born. And since he didn't have any contact with them, I knew they were there, but I never met them. I never knew them. I didn't grow up with them. And when I became an adult, I decided I wanted to meet them. I wanted to find them. And I did, through the magic of Ancestry.com and Google and a little bit of luck. I found them, and they live on the East Coast, and so they've both been out here. I've met both of them, and I decided I wanted to go back there and see them. When they were both here, my mom did most of the talking, because they have a lot of questions. We all have a lot of questions. My dad had 4 children. We all have a lot of questions. So when they came out here, my mom did most of the talking. I didn't really get to talk to them. We didn't really get to know each other, hardly at all. So I went to see my middle brother in New York and spend a few days with him and get to know him. And I had a great time. We went to see The Lion King on Broadway. Great show. The music is awesome. The costuming is awesome. The scenery, like the way they did the stampede in the gorge, awesome. And the little boy who plays the young Simba is so talented. He was so good. And the little girl who plays the young Nala too was really good. But good show. And we went to see the 9/11 memorial, the reflection pools. That part was okay. The reflection pools, they have in the footprint of the World Trade Center, they have one for the North Tower, they have one for the South Tower. That part was okay. But the museum was too much. I cried and cried in the museum. And it starts from 8:30 on the morning of September 11th with one of the last known pictures taken of the World Trade Center. And it goes all the way through the first plane hitting, the second plane hitting, the towers collapsing. It goes the firefighters. It goes through the whole thing, and it's heartbreaking. It's a crowded place. That museum has a lot of people in it, and it is so quiet for the number of people that are in there. It is really quiet. It's very well done. And it's heartbreaking. They have a room there where they have pictures of everybody who was killed in the attack, not just the World Trade Center, but the planes, the Pentagon, everybody that was killed. And they have a room where they have a projector, and it just you can sit there and watch, and it just goes one at a time and talks about each person. It shows pictures, at least one picture. Some of them have 2 or 3 pictures. It talks about where they were during the attack, how it is that they came to be killed in the attack. Were they in the World Trade Center? Were they on the plane? Were they at the Pentagon? And it tells a little bit about who they were. Were they married? Did they have a family? What they like to do? Some of them have audio recorded by family members that talk about the person. And we sat through 5 or 6 of them, and it's really well done, the whole museum. That was a hard day, because that was a lot. and I wasn't feeling that well that day, and so it was a hard day. After that, we went to see the Statue of Liberty. We just saw that from the Staten Island ferry. We didn't go up to it or go in it or anything, because I had mentioned it to my brother, and my brother saw, you know what you do at the Statue of Liberty? And I'm like, yeah, I know. You climb a bunch of stairs. So he wasn't really up for that. But we saw it from Staten Island, and that was cool. What else did we do? I got to see the school where he works. He just got promoted to assistant principal, so yay him. And so I got to see where he works and see some of his classmates or his colleagues, a couple of his students. We went to the beach one night. That was on Sunday night when I wasn't feeling well. But they have live music down there on the weekends. And it's this place called Smith Point Park, where they also have the memorial for TWA Flight 800. And which, if you remember, was a plane that went down in 1996. It had left New York, and it was on its way to Paris. And it came down. Why it came down is kind of a matter of controversy. People are saying that, I think the people that live in the area who saw it say it was shot down. But it's a matter of controversy as to why it came down. But everybody on the plane was killed. So they have a memorial for that there. And it occurred to me while we were there that, this was on Sunday and I was flying home on Tuesday. Kind of occurred to me that going to memorials for plane crashes was maybe not the smartest thing to do right before I was flying home. Anyway, that was my trip to New York. I had a ball. I can't wait to go back. I stayed in Times Square this time. I think next time I'm going to stay in Lower Manhattan, like in Soho or in Tribeca or Greenwich Village, because I didn't really get to see very much of Lower Manhattan. I saw the World Trade Center Memorial, saw the Statue of Liberty, saw, the stuff that was in an immediate vicinity of the World Trade Center. There's this place, I think it's on 14th Street, called Max Brenner's, and it's like a chocolate emporium. They have a lunch menu, but it's chocolate. And I wish I had been feeling better that day, because I probably would have enjoyed it a lot more if I had. So that was my trip to New York. And on to my August update. Stash diet. Yeah, I talked about this in my video from New York, but I went to the needle workshop while I was there, and a lot of fun. But when I got home, I sort of decided that I was over the stash diet thing. I don't really have any reason for doing it other than like FOMO, fear of missing out. And I guess the idea was to save money, but I haven't really been saving money because I've been buying a bunch of other stuff. I spent a lot of money in New York. I've been buying clothes, I've been buying purses. I spent $600 getting my framing done. I've been spending a lot of money on a lot of things. So this not buying stash is not really saving me any money. So, and I don't really have any other reason to do it. So, I decided that I was over it. So, yeah, no. Bye-bye stash diet. So, I have some stash. Yay! We'll talk about that. So, yeah. I have some haul. But first, my WIPs. We'll get to the haul. First, my WIPs. I have a finish, which if you've been following my Instagram or you saw Cross Stitch and Discuss tonight, you might have seen or might figure out what it is. But I just finished this and it feels kind of fragile, so I'm going to be kind of careful with it. But this is my Dragonfly project. This is Dragonfly Fantasy from Dimensions Reflections series, which is discontinued. So there's the dragonfly all cut out and backstitched and everything. And then there's the little frame and the word explore. And it feels kind of fragile on the wire. I glued the wire on and with craft glue. It doesn't feel real secure. It feels like if I jiggle it too much, it's going to fall apart. So I'm being kind of gentle with it. But hopefully when the glue dries, it'll feel a little bit more stable, a little bit more secure. But so there's my finish. This is my third finish for the year. Behind Bluebell and Strawberry Fields. So I'm very happy with that. I think I'm going to take it to work and put it in my cubicle. I think I'm going to hang it in my cubicle at work. So there's that. My other WIPs, Mains of the Seasons, Trade Winds, no. Haven't really made any progress on them. But I did make a new start. And so this has a little bit to do with my haul. But one of the things that I bought when I decided that I was over the stash diet was I bought World of Cross Stitching magazine. And I know you know where this is going because everybody has been showing this magazine, everybody has been showing this design. So I know you know where this is going, but I'm going to show you anyway. So there's the ever popular Blackwork Hummingbird, which is of course the reason why I bought the magazine. And they're starting a stitch along for it. I'm going to give it a little plug. It's started by Marika at The Real Life of Me. And there's a group that she started called Blackwork Hummingbird SAL on Facebook. And it starts on September 1st, which is this coming Tuesday. And I'm in that group, but I jumped the gun. I didn't want to have to wait until September 1st. So I started mine already. And here's where I am on it. I started in the top left corner with the blockwork, and those partial motifs you see there in the middle are where it hits the bird. It starts running into the bird and into the flower. And this project is kind of interesting. You have to be very, very careful and look at the chart very carefully because there's these partial motifs here, but there's also, especially down here in this area, the filling stitches start to change or start to be filling stitches, and then once you get into them they change. So, and the little lines that connect the motifs together, it's really easy to just start putting connecting lines on everything, but not everything has it, because you see over here, there's no connecting line here because there's no motif below it. So you gotta watch the chart really carefully. And it's also interesting just in terms of motivation and ease of stitching. These motifs, they're repetitive, but it's easy just to pick up a few, or pick it up and put a few motifs in each night. They take like 2 minutes each to do. They're not that difficult to do. And it's really easy just when you have a few minutes to pick it up and put in a few motifs. It kind of reminds me of a project that I see on another video, on another podcast, and I'm going to plug her. I'm going to tell you about her. It's Doodle-head Stitches, and her name is Melissa Gann, and her podcast, she's not a floss tuber per se. She has a blog. I know Jessie Marie reads her blog and probably watches her podcast. She's she is a stitcher. She does do cross stitch, but her podcast is about quilting, knitting, crochet, and cross stitch. And truthfully, it's mostly focused on knitting and quilting. with a little bit of crochet and a little bit of cross stitch. But I enjoy her podcast. She publishes every 2 weeks, and I enjoy her podcast, and I recommend it. I'm going to put a link to it below in the description. So she's working on a crochet quilt, or like an afghan, and it's a scrap afghan, so whatever kind of yarn she uses for her other project, she makes a little square, and slowly but surely she's connecting them together and making an afghan out of it. And that's what this project reminds me of. It reminds me of her crocheted afghan that I'm holding it sideways, aren't I? It reminds me of her afghan that just pick it up, put a few little squares in it, and eventually it grows and grows, and eventually I'll have a completed piece. So that's my new start, Blackwork Hummingbird. Sorry, my friend's trying to talk to me. I'll talk to him later. And so that's really my WIP progress. I finished the Dragonfly. That's what I've spent most of the month doing, trying to finish it. And I started Blackwork Hummingbird. Nothing else has really gotten any attention, including, if you remember, Mackenzie and I were supposed to be doing Quaker Game Board together. And I know she started hers. I've seen it on Instagram. But I have not touched mine. I pulled it out, but it hasn't gotten any stitches yet. So soon, Mackenzie, I promise, soon. I think I'm going to make it my work project. I think I'm going to bring Mains of the Seasons home and make Quaker Game Board my work project. And I'll focus on Mains of the Seasons at home because there's a Mirabilia SAL starting on January 1st in Cross Stitch and Discuss, and on Seaside Group and Instagram. And I want to participate, but I would really like to finish Amira first. So I'm going to try to finish, or get close to finishing Mains of the Seasons before January 1st. And then I'll participate in the Marisol with a new piece. So that's my WIPs and rotation haul. There's not very much of it. I have some more coming, but it's not here yet. ABC Stitch had a sale last weekend, and so I ordered. But they are so slow to ship. Like, if I'd ordered from 123 Stitch, it would have been here already. ABC Stitch is so slow to ship. But I'll show you that next time. I'll show you that when it comes in. But in the meantime, what I did get is I ordered from So-and-So, which I don't do very often because I'm on the wrong side of the exchange rate and it gets to be very expensive. And so I don't really do that very often, but I did do it. And so I'll show you what I got. The first thing I got was this chart here. And I know who enabled me into this, and I'm going to name and shame her. This is Petals of Love by Gorgeous Girls. Gorgeous by Bothy Threads. And the person who enabled me into this was Emily Chadwick, who stitched hers last year, and it is so cute. And so I've been eyeing this for a while, and so I got it. And Emily got married a few weeks ago, so congratulations, Emily. I hope you and your bride will have a very happy life together. And congratulations. And the other thing I got... Why is this so difficult? The other thing I got was Elegance by John Clayton Miniatures. And I've seen this floating around on Cross Stitch and Discuss and floating around in other places. And I just think it's really pretty. She kind of reminds me of Kate Middleton. So I got that one. I don't really have any immediate plans to start either one of them, but there they are. So that's my stash for now. That and the magazine, and I bought the supplies for the Blackwork Hummingbird. So that was my haul for this month. So next up will be Carolina's tag. So Carolina's tag, I have the questions here. I meant to do this in my tag video and I missed it. So the first question is, how do you arrange the floss you're using on a project? I organize my projects in Ziploc bags, and I don't really arrange the floss. I have the skeins. I don't usually bobbinate. If I do, there's a particular reason for it. And on projects I don't have that many colors. They have 15, 20 colors. I just put the floss in the bag and I pick out what I need. For projects that have a lot of colors, like TW or the Silver Lining, sometimes I'll separate the colors out. For the Silver Lining WIP that I have, I had separated the colors by color family, and I put them each like in a quart-sized Ziploc bag, and then put those in a gallon-sized Ziploc bag. For my TW Storyteller WIP, I pulled out the colors for the that I needed for the section of the chart that I was doing, and put those in a separate bag, and then put that inside my larger Ziploc bag, just to make finding those colors easier. Instead of, I only have to look through 15 or 20 colors instead of through like 80 colors. She doesn't have that many colors in there, but it makes it simpler. But yeah, I don't have any sophisticated system for storing my floss. I just put it in a bag and find what I need. Have you attempted to dye fabric, and if so, what method did you use? If not, is there any particular method you want to try? I have not tried it. I've seen pictures of people trying it on Facebook and on Instagram. I don't know if I'm going to try it or not. It seems like it could be kind of fun. I don't know if I'm going to try it. I'm kind of particular about hand-dyed fabric. And so, I like my hand-dyed fabrics a little more subtle and a little more, I don't like the real, like, dramatic ones that much. So, I'm not sure if I'm going to try it. Maybe I will. If you use a needle threader, is there any specific type you prefer? I don't use a needle threader. I'm a floss flicker. If I do use a needle threader, it's those cheap little metal ones that you get from Dritz or whatever. They break if you pull on them too hard. If you use any type of frame to stitch, do you stitch with the fabric over the frame or in the well? I rarely stitch with a frame. I mostly stitch in hand, but when I do use a frame, I stitch with the fabric over the frame. Although I do know a lot of people who stitch in the well, and I can see the benefits of that. Do you start your threads in the front or the back of your projects? What method do you use? I start in the back, and I just weave the threads in through a few existing stitches, or I'll hold on to the end and I'll stitch over it. If you're a gritter, what is your preferred method of gritting thread? I use the Sulky Sliver Metallic because you can't pierce it with a needle, so you can't sew it into your work. And when you're done, it slides right out. Like, you pull on it and it just comes right out. And it doesn't leave any marks on your fabric. It doesn't change the color of your fabric. You can't sew it into your fabric. So that's what I use, although I rarely grid. It's tedious and boring, and I hate doing it. So if I do it, it's because I have a particular reason for it, and I do as little of it as I can get away with. What is your favorite way to finish projects? I do a lot of framing. Well, that's not true. I do some framing. I do a lot of not finishing projects because I don't sew that well. and um, my finishing skills leave a little to be desired. But I would like to learn some more ways. I would like to learn to make more types of ornaments and wall hangings and different things. What was your first cross-stitching milestone? Well, the first project that I finished was the little carousel horse from the beginner's book that I was using when I learned counted. I guess the first one was switching from stamp to counted. And then I finished the carousel horse. And then probably the next one was switching from Ada to linen. And I still have the WIP that I switched on. The first WIP that I did on linen, it's not done yet. I have it on my WIP list. Maybe someday I'll get around to finishing it. Maybe someday I'll get around to showing it to you. It's a magazine design from Cross Stitch and Country Crafts. What is a stitch goal you have? Something you want to conquer? Finishing. Yeah, I'd like to learn to finish. And also hardanger and drawn thread and cut thread work. I'd like to learn that. That's something that I admire about Amanda at Mrs. Milky Bar Kid. Is she knows her way around hardanger, and she isn't afraid of it, and that's something that I would like to learn, because I am kind of afraid of it. I've done a little bit, and I have Janice Love's book about it, but it's not something that I've really taken the time to learn the filling stitches and learn how to cut and do all that. What is your silliest duh stitch moment? I saw somebody mention that she's been known to try to stitch with the needle backwards. I've done that. Or you put the eye of the needle through the fabric instead of the point. I've done that. Probably my most recent duh stitch moment was with Legends of the Dragons, and I started in the wrong place, so I didn't have enough fabric. I felt kind of stupid for that. Although, really, I made that mistake like 10, 12 years ago. That wasn't really a recent mistake. I just discovered it recently. The other thing, as far as duh goes, have you ever had this happen to you? I have a project. It hangs in my bathroom now, but I bought it. It's one of those Dimensions Daydreams kits, and I know I've talked about these before and how much I like them. But I had bought it, and I had stitched about half of it, or 30-40% of it, and for whatever reason I got tired of it and I put it away. And it sat half done for like 5 years. And I pulled it out and I finished it in a weekend. And then it was kind of embarrassing. It was like I let it sit that long and it didn't, for no real reason. It took a few hours to finish. I finished it in a weekend and it sat there for 5 years over a weekend's worth of work. So those always make me feel kind of dumb too. Like, why'd you let it sit there so long? Just finish it. If you use paper charts, do you print them at home or use a service? I print them at home. I have a color printer, and ink it's not cheap, but it's not terribly expensive. So I print it at home. I used to have a membership to Sam's Club, so I have like oodles of paper. I think I bought a box that had 5 reams of paper in it, and I think I still have like 3 of them. How do you mark your paper charts if you use them? I use a pencil. I keep a mechanical pencil in my project because you can retract the lead and not mark your fabric. But I use a pencil. And the reason I use pencil is because you can see through it to see the backstitch lines later. I once tried to use a pen to mark it, and I realized that I was covering up all the backstitch lines. And you can also erase pencil if you mark the wrong square or you frog something. You can erase your marks. So, is there a cross stitch book you suggest? Not especially. There's a book called Picture It and Cross Stitch by Joe Verso that talks about designing your own samplers. And that was interesting. I enjoyed that. And she talks about things to watch out for, how to keep yourself from being bored, and how to keep your sampler balanced so that it's not too heavy on the bottom or too heavy on the top. And she has a lot of little motifs there for you to use to represent your family and represent your hobbies and your life, and that was interesting. And of course, I'm always going to suggest Teresa Winsler's fantasy collection, sampler collection. Is there anything that you find you're very nitpicky about when you cross stitch? Yes, and I kind of already alluded to it. I'm very picky about pairing hand-dyed fabrics and patterns together, because I like balance. I don't like very busy patterns with very busy fabrics, or very I'm very picky about pairing fabrics. I don't like pairings where you have to look for the design. Like, you can see the fabric, but you have to like study it to find where the design is. I saw one recently of a mermaid where the colors of the mermaid were so close to the colors of the tail or the fabric that I had to like look for her tail. I was like, oh, well, there's her face, and I kind of had to follow it around to find the tail because the tail just blended right into the fabric. I don't like that. I don't like things like ink circles, mandalas, or like Turret in Town, or even their circle series. I don't like. I guess I just don't like when there's too much. There's a busy hand-dyed fabric and a busy pattern and a busy over-dye thread all together. It's just too much. Like, pick something to focus on. So I'm very mindful of that when I pick fabrics. I want the design to shine and not the fabric. And in most cases, not really the thread. Some designs are good for showing off thread, but then you want to show off the thread. You don't want to show off the fabric. So you want to, pick a fabric that's going to kind of sit in the background. So that's one thing that I'm picky about. And since I just spent several minutes discussing it, you can see. You can see my feelings on that issue. Yeah. Favorite LNS you visited while on a trip, if you've been to one? Well, I haven't been to very many. I went to where Victoria's Angel stitched when I was in New York. And then about 10 years ago, I was in Ohio, and I went to Paw Prints Cross Stitch, which is now closed. They're not there anymore. But we were in outside Cleveland visiting family, and we drove down to Columbus, and I conned my uncle into letting me go to the stitching shop in Columbus. And I mean, the shop was very nice. I did some shopping in there, and the girl that used to own the shop was a member of the UCU boards, and her friend, who was also a member of the UCU boards, was there, and so I got to meet them, and that was fun. But the funny part about the story was that my uncle could not believe that my mother would let me go into the store and meet a bunch of people from the internet without going in to check it out first. And my mother was like, she's going to meet Stitches. She's not going to meet a bunch of men. my uncle, he went in with me and he saw it really was a stitching shop, and there really were women there, and there was nothing funny going on. So he went in and met them and looked around the shop, and he went and did what he was doing, and he came back and picked me up. But it still cracks me up. Oops. Let's see. Next question. What do I keep doing? Sheesh. Okay. Last question. Is there anything you do that feels you take up a lot, that you feel takes up a lot of time when you cross stitch, but is worth it in the end? Back stitching. Definitely back stitching. Blends take time, but the effect is usually worth it. When it's a designer who knows how to use blends, sometimes I kind of wonder, but yeah. Fractional stitches are worth it in most cases. For those curves and like dimensions, kids tend to have that odd back stitching where you got part of the stitch outside the back stitch, and yeah, fractional stitches, quarter stitches take care of that problem. For the few times that I do it, gridding is worth it. I don't do it unless it's going to be worth it. So, and parking is definitely worth doing. So, on the appropriate project, I wouldn't do it on my Mirabilia, but for Hayde and for Teresa Wensler, Tilton Crafts, all of that kind of stuff, parking is totally worth it. So, there's the fun little tag by Carolina, and I will also link to her video in the description box down below. And I will see you soon with a haul video, or maybe at the end of September with a WIP update and a haul video. We'll see how long it takes ABC Stitch. I was also poking around the Hayde sale, and I think I might get a couple of things in the Hayde sale. I've been eyeing that mini Alice in Snow White by Jasmine Griffith Beckett Griffith. Yeah, Beckett Griffith. I've been eyeing that. I've been eyeing one of the faces, or a couple of the Faces of Fairy. Not sure which one I'm going to get. There's a few other things that I've been eyeing. I saw one, I think it's Jasmine Beckett Griffith, who has a Wizard of Oz one, Garrett. Although I can't imagine that you haven't seen it or had it pointed out to you at some point. But yeah, she has a Wizard of Oz one. And so I will see you all next time. It is really hot here. I'm trying not to melt. I hope all of you are having a great summer, what's left of it, and a great stitchy day. And I will see you next time. Bye.